touch base really quickly on our mission, because we think that this is a category of issue, but facing many issues. The issue of election integrity. We believe is an issue that every state should be looking into.
Hey, Linda, can I pause you for a second? Folks are having a hard time hearing you. So why don't we go ahead and see if we can't. I'll have you call in on a landline. Are you on a landline right now? Okay. So why don't we go ahead and call? Well, that's not going to work either. Folks are just having a hard time. Many are saying that it's almost impossible to understand what you're saying. Yes, let's give you a different and see if that doesn't help. It's 509-486-1852.
All right. I'm sorry, just that's the
509-486-1852. Okay. So sorry for the delay. I muted everyone's mics, and we're going to have Linda call in on a landline. She's also on a cell, so that may not be helpful. But we're going to see if this will fix the problem. Okay, so I'm going to see if this is going to work any better. Okay, go ahead and speak.
Okay, hi everyone. Is this any better?
Hold on one second. I'm going to see if I can arrange this. All right. Oops. Are you there, Linda?
I am.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys hear Linda? Go ahead and talk, Linda.
This is Ruth. There's a great deal of background noise. Somebody scrubbing dishes or something. If we could mute that one, it would be helpful.
It's probably me. My teenage son is making dinner, so while I'm rearranging here, I don't have the ability to change the location of the phone. Can you guys hear Linda? Linda, go ahead.
Okay. Hi everyone. Is this better?
I'm waiting to see what we get for responses. Bill Ames says yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm loud. Okay, I'll step away and let Linda take care of her presentation. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay. Let me just do I'll start over real quick, just since it sounds like most people really didn't hear it. So I just wanted to thank CSG for having Ruth and I on. Ruth is a board member with Center for Self-Governance, and she also coordinates one of our largest counties. So I will be doing most of the presentation. Ruth is going to jump on the call if I miss any detail that we both decided we wanted to make sure you all got. So anyway, Ruth, hop on when you feel it's appropriate. So I want to thank first all of you across the country fighting so hard to restore integrity to our governing system, bring us back to the Republic, and keep the Republic. We've all learned over the last several years that it is becoming quite a battle to do so. So it is my privilege to share with you what we are doing in California, and as a word of encouragement, just want to let you know that there are thousands of citizens across the state fighting against these progressive socialist communist tyrannical, what else can I say, laws that are being passed here. The media is not going to tell you about the fight taking place in California, but please know that it is. And I'm going to tell you about one of the fights that we're having here, and that is to restore integrity to our election process. What you see on the screen is our overview in history. We began in December 2010 after many of us went to the polls and just checked out how they were functioning, and what we saw caused us enough concern that we contacted an election law attorney and asked about the procedures that we observed. And the bottom line is that what we saw was already accepted. We were told that they knew these types of activities were taking place, but that the parties and the legislators could not stop it or fight it because it would be considered political. So if this was going to be corrected, it would have to be a citizen-led effort. It would have to be nonpartisan, and it would have to most assuredly have integrity as the basis upon how the work is accomplished. So we got started doing exactly that. I'm not going to read you the whole document. We have about 4 pages, but anyone who would like to learn more about what we're doing can certainly download the document, or CSG can send it to you. We are a nonpartisan group of U.S. citizens actively fulfilling our civic duty to participate in the governing of our state and our country by working in our state to help ensure the integrity of the voting process. And we're doing that because what we learned is no matter how angry we get at our legislators and threaten to throw them out with the next election, we found we were not able to do that. That there were activities that were taking place that always ended up blocking the citizens from removing corrupt politicians. So we began to look into the actual election procedures in our state by buying the election code book, which is quite large in California, and studying the election law so that we could see how the law intended for our elections to take place. We then created a document that we could use, or I should say it's a manual, that we could use to train citizens to go to the polls and observe what was taking place in polls all over the state, and then document what we were seeing so that we could provide a report and get a baseline for what was actually happening. So in 2012, we did train 2,100 citizens across the state, from Shasta County to the north, all the way down to San Diego County in the south, from the Bay Area to the Nevada border, and all through Central California. And what we learned is that the problems that we have in California are not just Los Angeles County and San Francisco, which is a myth. I think that most of us believed was taking place in California. What we learned is the problems in California's election process was systemic, and it impacted every single county in which our volunteers went out to observe the procedures. This caused us enough concern that we realized we did not correct the procedures, that the citizens truly would not be able to vote out corrupt legislators, and that we truly would lose our voice in government. So rather than go into any more of the document, go ahead and download it if you want to learn more. Basically, what we learned in a nutshell is that California is not compliant with state and federal law. Most concerningly is that we are not compliant with the Help America Vote Act that requires us to have a statewide centralized voter database. It's a database that is a top-down system and means that whenever a citizen registers in their county, one of 58 in California, that registration would automatically show up in the statewide database. What we have instead is a bottom-up system, and that means that each of the 58 counties must update their own voter rolls, and they must weekly send a report to the Secretary of State so that the state database can be updated. What we learned is this bottom-up system limits the ability of our registrars to actually truly clean up their voter rolls because they cannot do cross-county checks. They're limited in the kind of information they can use. And then again, the statewide database is limited in its integrity, and well, I should say there's really no real confidence in it, because if a county does not clean up their voter rolls, then they send their anomalies to the statewide database. So in a nutshell, what we found in 2012 is hundreds of thousands of duplicated voter registrations, people that were registered in multiple counties, cross counties side by side, and in counties not even close to each other. We found deceased on the voter rolls, some that had been re-registered, and some who voted even after death. So what we do is we bring this kind of information to our registrars, and we have met with the Secretary of State in 2013 to provide them with what we thought was credible intel to help them see that the integrity of California's election process was disappearing, and that it was becoming impossible for citizens to have a fair and honest election. What we found is that the interest varied. Some of our registrars were very appreciative of the information and did in fact make changes to the way they ran their voter rolls to make sure that they cleaned up their voter rolls. Other counties simply refused to meet with us until this year, 2015. So what we did with the information is we attempted to get the reports out to the media and alert the citizens both in California and out. And what we found is media were not interested in California's story, which was pretty alarming for us because we saw stories about voter fraud in other states where someone had voted 7 times and it made big news. And yet, LA County having over 800 deceased re-registered and voting did not seem to make the news. So then we decided we would communicate with our legislators and let them know what the problem was and ask them to help with legislation that would restore integrity to the election process. And what we found is the issue of election integrity / voter fraud is somewhat of a hot potato. It's very bad politically for a legislator to take that topic on, and so they all simply avoid it. So what I want to tell you is the citizens of California did not back down. In 2014, we trained approximately 1,750 citizens across the state to observe the polls, but we also trained hundreds of citizens to go to the polls and work as poll workers and inspectors, with the effort once again to document what's happening in our election process and to find out where the improvements are, where the improvements have been made, and where the problems still continue. So that's really in a nutshell what we do. Ruth, if you have anything to add in, let me know. I'll take a pause here.
Yeah, I think it's important to mention, too, that we train and send people to where the votes are being counted and where the signatures are being matched in order to determine whether they accept a vote by mail ballot or a provisional ballot, because watching that procedure also was very instructive to know how fast and loose they were playing with the rules, and we've been able to document situations there too, and to step in to have the rules be followed when they weren't being followed, so that once the ballots get in there, they're being processed properly. That's really important given the fact that over 50% of California's ballots are cast by mail, and then another very large percentage come in as provisional ballots. So that's another arm of what we do, which we really encourage other states to do, and which we will be expanding.
Ruth, what are provisional ballots?
Provisional ballot is cast by a voter who shows up on election day and whose eligibility to vote in that precinct cannot be determined at that point. It's usually a person who has shown up at the wrong polling place, And every state has different rules as to who can cast a provisional ballot. The problem with California is that we have what's called convenience voting, which means that any person can show up any place that they want to, and they can get a provisional ballot. Of course, they are not always going to get their same ballot style, so they will disenfranchise themselves on some things that are not on the ballot where they chose to vote, and then there will be things on the ballot they are given that they're not entitled to vote. So that's why there has to be extensive processing of the provisional ballot before it's counted, because they have to remove all the votes that the voter is not entitled to, and so it's a real big mess. Now, other states are very, very limited in their use of a provisional ballot, and for example, one state allows a provisional ballot only if you show up to register. They have same-day registration, and you don't bring the appropriate ID. You cast a provisional ballot, which is separated from the other ballots, and you have until the end of the vote day to show up with that appropriate ID. Now, that's so different from California that it just allows you to cast a vote anywhere, anytime, and that means in 2012, 40% of the provisional ballots cast in the nation were cast in California. So keeping an eye on the processing and the appropriate signature verification on the provisionals is very important in California.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. I want to talk about really the key paradigm shift that we have made in California, and I want to encourage everyone who's on this call to begin to consider making the same paradigm shift. And as you communicate with people in other states, I want to encourage you to ask them to make the same paradigm shift. This country was established as a republic, and a republic is governance by the consent of the people. So part of our consent is we choose those who will govern over us. When we think they're not doing a good job, we vote them out. But really what we've learned is that that original paradigm of the citizens can indeed choose those who are governing, and we can vote them out with each election. That paradigm has had to be shifted to realizing that those who want to fundamentally transform America are using our election process as a Trojan horse to control who gets elected. And that's critical because we in America, by and large, are trusting people. This country was based on the concept of rule of law. And so we will indeed follow the procedures in our Constitution to make changes. What we need to understand now is that we are in a new time in our history, and we must understand who the players are. Like any competitive game, whether it's football or chess, the team or the player who wins is the one who not only learns how to play the game and follow the rules, but it is indeed the one who studies their opponent. When you study your opponent, you can determine where their next move is going to be, or where their next play is possibly going to go or take that ball. We in California have now come to understand that every year we must get ahead of the curve in determining what kinds of new laws will the progressives attempt to pass in order to widen the door that provides the opportunity for voter fraud, election registration fraud, voter impersonation in the polls, which is identity fraud. All of this fraud is taking place in California right now. That's why you see California going over the edge into socialism and worse. It's not just statism in California, it's worse. We are not voting that in. Those who now have learned to control our elections through the corruption of our election process are who are voting this in. And I want to give you a word of hope in that we are finding in California, and that is the training of Center for Self-Governance. Californians have done everything right, with thousands of citizens stepping up to volunteer their time to document what's happening in 21 counties, and that included all of the large ones, which means that those volunteers represented about 75% of the population base in California in 2012. So that observation report that we pulled together definitely represented what is happening in California. That information and what we learned from that intel, we then used in 2013. We prepared 2014 for a solid advancement with citizens observing the polls documented and stopping the fraud when we saw it right there in the polls. But what we did not anticipate is how fully they studied us. They fully understood who we are and what we do. And we did not anticipate what they did in LA County in 2014. They did in the primary in LA County is we have 4,685 polling locations in our large counties, in our giant counties. We had 1,740 poll workers who we believe are county workers. LA County uses a county worker program. So the large majority of poll workers in LA County are union. They're all part of the same union. So 3 weeks before the election, 1,240 changed their minds all at the same time. And what LA County did is send out robocalls and emails to just a portion of the county, letting people know they needed poll workers. And then 2 weeks out from the election, they sent out another batch of robocalls and emails. And then the 1 week before the election, they sent out the robocalls and emails to what we believe may very well be the more conservative parts of our county. Now, we're in the process of looking deeper into this. But one thing we do know is they put a list on their website of the communities in LA County that were considered affluent and unwilling to participate in their own democracy, and therefore would have to have non-citizens working in their polls. Now, in 2013, they passed a bill, our legislators passed a bill that allowed non-citizens to work on polls. Even though EIP pushed hard against it, we could not stop it. So we did find during the primaries that the polls were in chaos, polls were closed, there were non-citizens working the polls, and many citizens in those affluent communities, so they are truly not, that was the label, they signed up to be poll workers, and they were either ignored or they were told they were not needed. My community alone, where EIP is headquartered, has 6 communities in Santa Clarita Valley. 4 of the 6 communities were on the list as affluent and unwilling to participate in our own democracy. So that is an absolute joke. But that is what they did. They anticipated our move, and they got ahead of it. So we worked hard through the summer, training more people, getting information out. And in the November, again, the progressives anticipated our move, and they printed the check-in rosters for those 4,685 polling locations without the vote-by-mail indicator listed next to the names of those who were going to vote by mail. In a nutshell, what that means is it made it possible for people to double vote, first send in their vote by mail, and then come to the poll and vote in their name. It was absolute chaos. We're still digging out, trying to prove who made those decisions and how all of this happened. But my point on that is to say it is time to make a new paradigm shift. And we've done that in California. Ruth and I have spent 2015 analyzing and considering what our opponents in California might do. And in fact, what they did is pass AB 1461, which inadvertently allows non-citizens to be registered to vote and vote by installing, through a new motor voter bill that makes voter registration automatic when someone gets their license. I want to pause for just a second and see if Bruce has anything to add on this, as we both have been working on this bill. But we did not anticipate this bill coming, and here it is. Bruce?
No, I don't think I have anything to add on that. I am curious, though, there are people from other states on the call, and I'm curious how much press this particular bill has gotten in other states, whether the rest of you are even aware of the controversy involving this law. It does open an enormous door for people who are non-citizens to become registered, either inadvertently or on purpose. And the worst thing about it is that it contains right in it a hold harmless clause, which means that if you accidentally or on purpose get registered when you shouldn't, and you get found out, that there can be no prosecution of you for wrongdoing, because they will assume that it was the fault of the system. And so that automatically invites people to do it without, any possibility of getting caught or being harmed. So that's our biggest concern about this one, and the implementation of it is something that we would like to delay until we can close some of those loopholes, and that's where we're trying to head now with our research, and maybe with some involvement from KTR teams here in California.
I would say that from the chat, it says, Jennifer Reppert says, New Jersey is looking to do the automatic registration from licenses. First, they are going for illegals to get licensed. And Deanna confirms this also from New Jersey. And John Lilly states there's none in Missouri. I'm assuming there's been no press in Missouri or no action. So looks like you've got something similar going on in another very oppressive state in the country. So.
There are some states besides California that issue driver's licenses to non-citizens and to illegals, but many of them, Maryland is the best one, I think, have created a way in which they can keep the records completely separate, so that when they do have the motor voter registration, they don't inadvertently get the wrong people onto the voter rolls. The problem with California's law is that they did not create that firewall, and so the databases are not there for them to check to make sure that the people getting on the voter rolls through the motor voter system are qualified to get there. And that's the concern. Other states have a similar system, but they have instituted the protections that need to be there where California has not.
Thank you, Ruth. What I would recommend to every leader on this call is that you all consider what you can do to get ahead of the curve. Know that California is one of the states that is a trendsetter and sets the tone. And so other progressive states will attempt to do whatever California has done. And what you can do as KTR teams is work with your legislators, put those firewalls in place, pass legislation that will make it impossible for them to, number one, have non-citizens working in your polls, and then number two, have them inadvertently get on your voter roll and then vote. I think the bottom line is the most important thing you can do now is begin to either get involved with an election integrity effort that's already in your state. Citizen oversight is absolutely critical, and not just citizens looking. We did that in 2010, but we didn't know what we were looking at. Citizens who understand your election laws, observing and documenting on incident reports signed under penalty of perjury, so that those reports move from the category of anecdotal to the category of usable for legal action. We can certainly help you with how to put those documents together, but then each of you will have to look into your own state laws and put together your own forms that fit with what you're doing in your state. But the content. The other thing that I would encourage every one of you to do is to make sure your voter rolls are clean. We have registrars and other states that we know swear that their voter rolls are clean. And then we have citizen oversight groups that look into those voter rolls and find that they are not. So it's kind of like the wolf, protecting the chickens. We can't, without citizen oversight, we really don't know what's there. So I encourage you to get involved or start a citizen oversight group. And then the important thing is to be able to stop the manipulation of what's happening in the elections in the polling locations as they're happening. Once they happen, it is thousands and thousands of dollars to try to overturn it, and almost impossible to overturn it. So if you see, voter impersonation or electioneering or whatever it is that takes place in the polls that is illegal, if you can stop it while it's happening or before it happens, you're going to be in much better shape than if you try to go after it after the fact. And what I mean by after the fact is there seems to be a pattern that a candidate can be winning by anywhere from 4 to 10 points, and then after election day, they lose by the same 4 to 10 points. So for us, when we saw that pattern in California, that pointed us to the fact that there is some kind of a game plan that is being used because the numbers are too consistent. That same game plan is being used in Nevada because their numbers are the same as California's. So you can go back into your voting histories and see if you can find a pattern. Are there good candidates that are winning, and in the last hour or so, all of a sudden they're losing by almost exact same percentage points. That will clue you that you've got probably a systemic effort taking place in your state. Okay, now, with all the bad news, I want to be able to give you at least some good news. We believe that the only way to overcome this attempt to transform America is by Americans pulling together and building coalitions. We must determine who our opponents are. Those are the global progressives who are painstakingly changing our country through our own laws and our own elections. So we know that that's who our opponents are. That all the rest of us, who are citizens, we may look different, we may have different beliefs, we may have different goals and visions for our lives. But if our goal is not to fundamentally transform America, then we're on the same side. We need to work together to stop the transformation. So that's what I would begin doing too, is determining who is playing on what team. And that way you can be more careful with your messaging. We tend to send out email blasts all over Kingdom Come, sharing our strategy and our theories and what we're going to do, and never even thinking for a minute our opponents are on our distribution list. We did that in California, and so we figured out that every time we came up with a good game plan, the progressives got ahead of it. So we now communicate differently. We don't send big email blasts. We meet with leadership in person. We leave our phones in the car or turn them off. We are for our life. And if anyone who's not understanding is the code. So that's what we encourage you to do now, is realize how serious the global progressives, and they are both parties, how serious they are about transforming America. And I think they have been very serious about the fight in California, because we are very serious about stopping them. The successes of the KTR teams in California, we are so thankful for Jennifer Duff, Governor. But we found that we were hitting walls until this year, and it started training us on how to keep the Republic, how to control our legislation. And so we have begun working together. EIP is a company on the one hand, and citizens who are now part of KTR teams on the other hand. And for the first time in 4 years, we were able to meet with the LA County Registrar. EIP sending a letter in January saying they would meet with successfully be meeting with the DA, and then KTR teams doing the work that they do. We're very careful not to out our KTR members, because it's important that those of us who are putting together what we call a mega tool be able to make that information and intel available to our KTR team and not have them outed so that they can effectively use that intel to keep the republic. So, and I probably won't tell you a lot of those details on the phone. I don't think this is appropriate unless Michelle or somebody tell me that I should. But I know what has made a difference in LA County is that our KTR leaders are not necessarily connected with you. Okay, and then one last big one I want to tell you about is this year, 2015, all of the research that we put together over 4.5 years, we were finally able to present to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights. And that is a big one for us because with everyone else not wanting to talk about it, media, legislators, registrars, it's getting pretty frustrating. We are bringing critical intel, actually enough to file legal action against the Secretary of State. And yet everyone was afraid of this because of their own political desires, really. But with the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, we were able to provide for them a mountain of evidence of proof of noncompliance with state and federal law, with the disenfranchisement of every single voter, regardless of party affiliation and what our backgrounds are. And we were able to show them how it's being done. So they are in the process now of examining intel, and so we'll continue to communicate with some of those committee members and keep an idea of where they're at and what they're doing with that information. But what we will, and what we are continuing to do now too is regarding AB 1461. For the first time, we're seeing people now taking this seriously. Where for 4.5 to 5 years, they pretty much have continued to say there is no voter fraud in the EIP. We're looking for problems to fit our solutions. But all of a sudden now they're paying attention and they're realizing that what we've been telling them for 5 years is true and that it's very, very serious. We appreciate the prayers of all of you and everyone across the country. California is the canary in the coal mine. EIP is that canary. We have shouted the alarm now for 5 years, and I can only hope it's not too late. But I do across the country will pull together and fight together for California. You can stop it from your state, but we need your help as you work with your legislators and force perhaps congressional action to update the national voter registry, to update the motor voter in light of the fact that non-citizens are getting driver's licenses. We think the answer for Californians is going to have to come from Congress because the legislators in California have become very successful at locking us out of a fair and honest election. We're not giving up here, but we are asking for the rest of the country's help. Okay, I think at this point, I'm just thinking, we can open it to questions. Michelle or Ruth, if you want to add something, take your time.
I would say if anyone has questions to go ahead and please put them in the chat box. Michelle has asked that you repeat the bill number.
This is Assembly Bill 1461.
Assembly Bill 1461, is that what you said, Linda?
Right, that's correct.
Okay. And Deanna says would help EIP in any way we can. And Michelle is typing the bill number into the feature.
Okay, great. I think the number one thing that we do, EIP has been networking with 7 other states over the last 5 years. Several of those states are doing very, very good work Carolina, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio. We can give a list of those that we know are doing great work. Through the Vote does a good job with national messaging, but they don't really do on the ground in each individual state. Each state is going to be tasked and always has been tasked to clean up their own backyard. So what everyone needs to understand is no one's going to come and do it for you. We saw that with California. Nobody cares about it. And in the beginning they said, why should we care if Californians don't care? So we got that message, and that was good for us. It was hard. It was good for us because it caused us to work together and to stand up and fight the fight. Now, you all didn't get to hear on that, but I guarantee you, we are fighting hard by the thousands.
Linda, would you share your contact information for those folks who would like to reach back to you or Ruth to get more information on what you guys are doing?
You can reach Ruth at electionintegrityproject.com. You can reach me at Linda at electionintegrityproject.com. We encourage everyone to go to our website. We have two websites. One is electionintegrityproject.com. Sign up for our RSS feed and also our newsletters. We're going to use the website as a major communication regarding election integrity project efforts. And then we're in the process of pulling together what we call California Legislation Action Hub. Reach that right on our website. We have it on the site. We're going to start to use that as a communication hub regarding legislation in California that is being used by progressives to transform California. Even if you're in another state and you are not able to have an impact on our state legislators, we recommend that you at least follow what's happening in California, because that will tell you what to watch for in your own state, and that will help you get ahead of it. Put your own legislation out there that stops some of this bad legislation from even coming about. So anyway, that will give you a peek into what's in store for you if you're not able to stop it.
Wonderful, thank you. Michelle has put Ruth and Linda's email address in the chat box if folks want to write it down. I will also email out their email addresses, the websites, as well as the PDF that you see on the screen to everyone who participated tonight, so you'll have those resources on hand. I'll try to get that done tonight. If not, I'll get it done early tomorrow. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat. We have a few more minutes here with Linda and Ruth. Oh, we got people who are jumping on. Kale says thanks, Linda and Ruth.
You're welcome, and thank you and all of your trainers for coming out. CSG, you guys have done an amazing job igniting the citizen effort. So many have become so discouraged. They're fighting the good fight, doing it right, and hitting block walls. And we look forward to continuing our training and being able to hold these guys accountable for what they're doing.
Yes, Deanna is suggesting an annual conference on what you're doing.
That's great. We would love to be as helpful as we can in the other states, especially with a major election year coming up. But a national conference would be excellent.
Bill M. Ames says, attended the civil rights hearing in LA. These folks are incredible.
Thank you, Bill.
And Janet says, many thanks to everyone who has made this webinar possible. Well, thank you. Thank you for, we do this as a small fundraiser for CSG. Everyone knows that we're a nonprofit. So your donation is very much appreciated. We appreciate Linda and Ruth taking the time to get on the webinar with us. Michelle is asking, why the media blackout? Your opinion.
Well, I believe because the media is also part of the progressive effort. So we no longer have a journalistic arm that protects the citizens. We have a media arm that protects progressives. They want everyone in California to believe that they're all alone. So the battle we had in California is, as I travel across the state, is to tell people in the northern counties that they're not alone, that the southern counties are fighting with them, and vice versa. That's one of my passions, is to network our state and make sure they know that though the media is not telling us the truth, we are willing to network with each other and learn the truth. And it's encouraging to know that you're not fighting alone. The media doesn't want the rest of you to know because it's intel. If you figure out what they're doing to us here in California, you will be able to get ahead of it. So as long as they can keep the wolf over your eyes, then that's good for them. So that's why we're doing the California legislation now. We're trying to find a way to get around the media blackout and provide critical intel to everyone across our Montana state and to other states. And just to give you an idea of how big we are, LA County alone is larger than the 8 largest states in the country. So that's why we have 55 electoral college votes, but it's LA County that will impact the presidential election unless we stop California from getting those 55 electoral college votes.
If I might add just a little bit to that opinion about why we have a media blackout, I think it's Linda's exactly right, but we also have a situation with the media being interested in only things that are immediate, right now, today, over with and gone. This is a continuing problem, and media doesn't cover something that goes day after day after day after day unless it's a plane crash in Indonesia. And so it's not a sexy thing for them to pick up. So even the news media that you would think would carry our message, the people that we consider potentially friendlies, this is not the type of story they want to put their teeth around. And also, I think because it puts their head on the chopping block, because it's not a very popular thing to talk about, and the media, the rest of the media and the progressives are poised to pounce whenever you even suggest that there might be anything going on to manipulate elections. And so a lot of media that might otherwise be interested in carrying are running scared. So you have the combination of all those things working together to make sure that the people out there have no idea that they're being manipulated.
Bill Ames has a question, has asked if you would speak to how you motivated 2,100 volunteers.
Well, the way we did that is California themselves, and I always refer to the citizens of California as heroes. We began in 2011 just driving all over the southern counties. We thought we would just do this in the southern counties, and we started emailing Tea Party groups, Women's Federated, just a wide range of groups, sharing information with each other, especially when we learned the water had been turned off to our farmland. We were shocked. Our state had no idea that was being done, and we were all shocked because who would shut off the water to fertile farmland? So in that networking, we decided to go observe the field and see what's going on. And that was our first step. We actually had put eyes on the process, got a picture of what was happening, and were so shocked. We decided it would need to be a bit of a Paul Revere and alert the rest of the citizens who didn't know what was going on. And I found this as I traveled around the state, and Ruth is one of our prolific speakers. She has done a magnificent job in San Diego getting the word out. We found that everyone in California knew in their gut something is wrong. We can't seem to vote out corrupt politicians, and the numbers aren't adding up, but we didn't know what it was. So as we began speaking and telling them, here's what we saw in 2010. We don't know what it means, but we darn well better figure out what it is. And people jumped up to be given something to do. Our training is about 4 to 5 hours long because they're learning law. We don't see anybody shrinking back from that. They want to know. They want to put a stop to it. So we hope to train thousands this year. We must train thousands this year because of AB 1461. We have to do everything we can, number one, to stop the implementation of AB 1461 because there is no way to find out who the non-citizens are in California. There is no database. So we must stop its implementation. Now, you all can help us by going to your legislators and demanding that Congress take action to stop the implementation. That's the solution to AB 1461. It must be, the implementation of it must be stopped. But then, really, Californians are still willing to step up, volunteering their time. We know we've gone over the edge, and we believe that we're the line in the sand. We believe that we cannot let California fall because we fear all the rest of you will be next.
Well, does anyone else have any questions? Oh, Ruth, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ruth. Deanna brings up the question of the New Jersey Compromise, which basically banned the Republican National Committee from having anything to do with election integrity, and that is true. But a lot of the state and county Republican organizations tend to use that as an excuse because this is just a very uncomfortable fight, and they are not affected by this New Jersey Compromise. It is only the National Committee that is restricted in any way. So if you find in your own states that the Republican organizations in your counties or in your whole state are backing off from the fight and not willing to listen to anybody talking about problems such as the voting machines being hacked or abused or not functioning properly or something else wrong with your system, don't let them get away with saying, well, we can't, we're banned, because that is not accurate. They are not at all in any way restricted by that New Jersey Compromise.
Michelle, if I can also say, often people ask how they can financially help us, and I want to let everyone know that we are not a non-profit. When we decided to start EIT, we spent 2 months trying to anticipate possible outcomes of a citizen effort like this. And we were encouraged to file as a regular C corporation because it would protect the work, the volunteers, et cetera, et cetera. So we're looking for investors, we're looking for donors. They cannot write us off their taxes, but neither do we have to give the IRS a list. So that's the trade-off.
Awesome. Well, we've come to the top of the hour, and I see no more questions in the chat box. I would say thank you all for attending. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Linda. We will have another speaker series event next month. We will have, the date is not set, I'm coordinating schedules. Next month it will be CSG legislators who will be talking about their experience on the other side of the fence, so to speak. And so that should be really interesting. There's the possibility of Brian Terry, Heather Scott from Idaho, Brian Terry's from Tennessee, and others. So we are looking forward to having them on to share their unique experience as a CSG student. All right. Thank you very much, ladies. Yes, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, and happy Thanksgiving to you all.
Sure.
Thanks, ladies.
Everybody.
All right, take care. Bye.
Bye. And just on a final note, for those that are still on, I'll be sending the link out as well as the other resources, so everyone will be able to listen to the recording later. Good night.